Alright, so today we're going to be using this switch, on-off switch, to turn on this motor. This is an electric motor, 12 volts. So we're going to use this switch to turn on this solenoid, using the power from this battery, to turn on this motor. So, a few supplies we're going to need. You're going to need an on-off switch. This is DC 12 volt 16 amp switch. This is a solenoid, our motor, our battery, some tools, and some wire. So this motor draws too much power just to use this switch. If we were to just wire the switch to the motor and the battery, it would blow up the switch. That's why we have the solenoid. Switch can turn on the solenoid's going to turn on the motor. So first things first, we need to wire up our switch with some wire. So I have some of this lying around. I'm going to wire this. This is positive and negative wire. That's all we're going to need. We're going to wire these to the terminals of the switch using these connectors I already have wired on. So now our switch hooked up to this wire. Now we're going to look at the other end of this wire because it's just as important. We're going to figure out where these wires need to go. So on the other end of the switch, we have these two wires, positive with a fuse and then another neutral. So we have the fuse on here just in case anything gets hot or arcs. We don't ruin all the wiring. It just will blow this fuse. We'll have to replace it. So for the positive wire coming out of this sleeve hooked up to the fuse, that's going to go on this terminal, the front right terminal of our solenoid. So that's going to let the switch engage the solenoid. So we're going to hook this on to this terminal. That's going to be our first step. We don't want to hook up power to the battery to the solenoid till the end because we want to minimize the chance of arcing or getting shocked or blowing fuses or anything that we don't have to. So we're going to leave power for the end. So I'm going to ratchet this down. We'll get the nut tight with the eyelet on the solenoid for good continuity. Second, we're going to put the other end of our switch, our neutral or ground, that lets electricity flow through, on the top right corner of our solenoid. I'm not going to put that on yet, the nut on yet, because we have other things to hook to here. So right now our switch, which is right here, is connected to our solenoid using positive and negative or positive and neutral wire. So the switch is going to activate the solenoid once we add power. So our second step is going to be wiring the motor to the solenoid. So the motor, all we have coming from the motor is a positive and negative, black and white, black and red wire. So our positive is going to go on this same terminal as the neutral in our switch. That way our switch can turn on the solenoid and the solenoid can turn on the motor. So we're going to need the nut. Wherever I just put the nut. So now that these two are connected to this terminal, we're going to put our nut back on. And I'll explain what that does here in a second. So we're going to ratchet these two down so we have good continuity and good contact with the solenoid. So now what we have is the switch. On and off switch is connected to the solenoid. And now we have to connect the motor to the solenoid. So the switch can turn on the solenoid. Solenoid's going to move the power over to our motor. So the ground on this solenoid, we're going to ground onto our battery. That way our battery and our motor and the solenoid are all grounded. So it's okay if we hook up stuff to the negative terminal of the battery because that's not flowing any electricity out into our motor or our solenoid or the switch. So I'm not going to put this nut on because we still have another wire to connect. So while we're connecting this ground, we're also going to be taking another piece of negative or neutral. This is just a neutral wire, two eyelets. So we're going to use this to ground the solenoid to the battery as well. That way everything will be grounded out. The motor will be grounded to the battery, the solenoid will be grounded to the battery, and our switch is neutral to our solenoid. So Gonna hook our neutral up to our battery now. And tighten these down nice and tight for good continuity. Like I said, we're not adding any power yet. The only way we're going to get power is connecting the positive terminal of the battery to the solenoid. I'm going to switch out these sockets. It's a little quicker. Alright, so now our battery is grounded to our solenoid. Our motor is also grounded to our battery. Now, we need to add a hot wire from our battery to our solenoid, and we also have to ground the battery to the solenoid using the other end of this black wire we just connected. So I'm going to do that now. Then all of our ground points will be connected. Then we just need to add power, and it should run the motor off of the switch. Alright, so now what should be the last step is adding power to here, and this circuit should work. So what's going to happen, we're going to flip the switch on. That's going to turn on the solenoid. The solenoid is going to take the power we're going to hook up from the battery and turn on this electric motor. Simple as that. We're going to leave the switch in the off position. That way if something arcs or we do connect it, it doesn't go off when we don't want it to. So for the positive, we're going to be using this thicker wire with 2 eyelets on it, because the power coming from the battery and the power coming from the motor is going to be pretty powerful, and we don't want a flimsy wire like this one because we don't want to burn anything up. So I'm going to connect power. We got to be careful here while this positive is connected because we don't want to arc anything. We don't want the other end of this wire, now that it has power running through it, to touch anything that's metal or anything on the solenoid. So we're going to tighten our power down, connect it to the solenoid, and we should be good. So take this off and connect our positive wire. Right now there should be no power coming to the solenoid because the switch is off. Over here the switch is in the off position, and that's cutting the power off, so it's not making it to the solenoid. So, brief explanation before we try this. I'm going to flip the switch on. It's going to run through this yellow wire to this terminal right here where we have the fuse and the positive connected. It's also going to run through this wire to the black wire that we have connected here. Then the switch is going to turn on the solenoid. This solenoid is going to pull power from this red wire that we hooked up to the terminal on the solenoid. And our motor is grounded to the battery here. Our motor is connected through positive to this terminal here. Alright, so I did have to change one thing. I had to move this black wire that's on this terminal from over here, from the positive to the motor. I had to move that over to the positive from the battery because we need the switch to be taking power from the battery. And that's on this side, not on this side. So in theory, now that we have all of our wires connected, the switch should turn on the motor. There we go. So when we flip the switch, that's spinning this on here, which you can connect to a sprocket or drivetrain and power something. There we go.